Hey guys, Chicky Domain, Debut.com with a Debut.com surf forecast update. This forecast update effective around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. And okay, wanted to start you off with a recap of why we watch, you follow Debut.com. Today marks 2 weeks since we posted in our social feeds and on our website, April 26th, uptick in tropical activity coming. We now have verification. 5 days ago, in our last video update, we mentioned the words possible major swell event coming. We are now in that real-time phase, and we're going to start you off in here in the tropics. There's lots to cover. We hope you'll stay tuned for the full forecast update, but we now have Tropical Storm Adrian over here in the East Pacific. We also have the season's first 3 tropical waves moving out here through the central Atlantic in the intertropical convergence zone in a east to west motion. Now there's some uncertainty here with what may happen with Tropical Storm Adrian, forecast to become a hurricane next 48 hours or so. If you followed our last video forecast update, we talked about the differences between the European model and the GFS, how the European model kept it on the East Pacific side. The GFS is also, in its most recent runs, wants to keep it on the East Pacific side. But if you've been following along on our forecast, you know we've talked about how this pattern can develop a suck-up low out of the East Pacific into the Southern Caribbean and then follow in a natural progression off towards the northeast. This remains a possibility. There also remains a possibility that Adrian stays on this side and then another area of low pressure develop in here and become Tropical Storm Brett in the extended forecast. So there is uncertainty here. But if you saw our social feed, how we like to describe this is that Tropical Storm Adrian is a one-car vehicle accident, and it's stopping up the traffic in the intertropical convergence zone. And things are going to start to stack here. Again, we already have verification through NOAA that we have 3 tropical waves, one here, and one just outside your screen, and then Tropical Storm Adrian forecast to become a hurricane and move off towards the west, but then retrograde as the week progresses, possibly back in here towards Central America. Now in the extended, the GFS wants to loop it back towards the Gulf of Mexico in here, or towards this shoreline with the possibility of moving into the Gulf of Mexico. Now again, it's the pattern of the suck-up that we're going to be watching for, because if you followed our forecast a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the north-south orientation of these fronts when they start coming through, and that can help deliver or spawn tropical cyclone development. Now we look back, 3 tropical waves. We look back over to Africa. We pointed this out in our last video update. It now looks like there's 2 more tropical waves inbound into the Atlantic. This would make 5 tropical waves in a 7-day period, confirming uptick in tropical activity. Now there's some uncertainty with this as well. As we pointed out in our last video update, some people may say it's too soon to look back towards Africa. There is nothing that takes or stops these tropical waves from progressing off towards the west and then getting into the Caribbean and help spawning tropical cyclone development. Switch you back over to this side again, because here comes the possible major swell event. We'll have more updates on the tropics because we're going to be watching Adrian and what comes of it with these tropical waves over the next 5 to 7 days. Regardless of what the models show now, does not mean that something can't spin up in here. So stay tuned for that. Surf forecast. Here we go, guys. Possible major swell event. This is the time of the year where we get the choir starting to use the words that we're hyping and blah, 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 because you're jonesing for surf. Guys, we do our best to give you the most accurate forecast. You know we've been on this. So here's where it is. We've had this stationary upper level low that's been over here in the southwest. And if you saw our post or mentioned before, upper level lows, sometimes sitting stationary like this, can help induce tropical cyclone development. this is going to start to break down and get on the move because the jet stream is dipping like this because of this. Now, we'll back up a little bit further. This is the gale, and we'll show it to you in the European model, last night's European model. This is the gale, or what's left of the gale, that developed 3 to 4 days ago. This put a northeast charge of swell in the water coming this way. This is going to morph into a late season developing storm off the south tip of Greenland and open up a secondary northeast fetch. It's already showing in the 96-hour swell model forecast. We'll show you that here in a second. But where the possible major swell event comes in is this upper level low feature is going to get on the move and head towards the outer banks. And another gale is forecast to develop right in here. And the exact location and strength is unknown at this time. So if a major swell event doesn't unfold, guys, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to give you the info. So we're going to be watching for this over the next 96 hours. Right now, the seas look to increase 15 to 18 feet and another pulse of northeast swell coming. Now, some of the latest wind models are showing winds gust up to 45 knots, and that'll put a positive charge. Now, think about this, guys, too. Now, there's times distance travel, but this late season developing storm is going to put some 15 to 18 second periods in the water. This is NOAA's latest 24-hour swell forecast. This is the Outer Banks in here. Here's New England, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. This, what you see here, is coming off that gale that developed 3 to 4 days ago. This up in here off the south tip of Greenland is the new late season developing storm northeast ground swell. Look at the difference between 24 hours and 96. Strong northerly swell pushing in, new gale developing here, secondary northeast pulse coming in. So the one coming in 24 hours from now pushing through, new one developing with a background 15 to 18 second swell period moving out of the North Atlantic. Show it to you in the model now. This is going back 72 hours. Give it a second to load here. This is going back 72 hours. Give me a second to adjust my screen. This is Sunday. Up here at the top of your screen. This is Sunday. This is that gale. Northeast fetch, aimed in here this way. That's the swell that's coming next 24 hours. I don't know the size. We'll go into a buoy watch over the next 24 to 48 hours to see what we see. The buoys to watch there are going to be the Paul West Bermuda buoy and the South Hatteras buoy for incoming swell. Now, this also at 72 hours, here's where the uncertainty comes in, because if you remember, we talked about negative swell production. Now, I'm going to advance the model for you. Remember, we talked about how that negative swell production was going to go away. This gale has sat here. Now, this moves into real time. This is yesterday and today. Now, watch what happens when this morphs now. Strong northeast fetch opens up in here at the same time as this gale develops. So that's northeast ground swell, north-northeast ground swell wrapping into this developing gale. Notice how this expands the fetch as we go into Saturday. King of the Hill surf contest, offshore winds, hoping for some fun surf alert conditions, guys. I don't care what the other forecast websites say. This opens up more northeast fetch as it goes off in its natural progression towards the northeast, aiming that down here towards Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. But now, this is for Sunday, May 14th. But notice again, we get negative swell production, hard offshore winds. So hopefully that sets up the surf alert in here, but also knocking the swell down. That area of low pressure moves up over towards New England and then out again. And we go into a little quiet phase. Now let's talk about that for just a second. Typically what we've seen in our forecast experience is that when we see a period of explosive energy like we're seeing right now, 5 tropical waves, a hurricane, possible major swell event, that it's just like in a song where it reaches a crescendo. After the crescendo, you get to go back to a little quiet phase. But with that said, that's where the tropics start to work in in the extended forecast, because we could see, although the European model is not on board, we could see an area of low pressure try to work up out of the southern Caribbean and get up in here towards the Bahamas. One other thing I'll point out, this is 10 days, long ways out, things can change, you know that. A vigorous tropical wave trying to work in towards the West African coast, and this could help open up some east-southeast swell coming up in about 2 weeks. We'll have to see what comes out of the Caribbean. That's all we got for you for now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.